Seniors, top 8 nighttime foods that rebuild muscles while you sleep. If you're over 60 and you think your muscles are disappearing just because you're getting older, think again. What if I told you the real damage isn't happening during the day, but while you're fast asleep? That's right. New research shows that up to 70% of age-related muscle loss happens during the night, when your body runs out of fuel and starts breaking itself down. And here's the twist, you can stop it. Not with expensive supplements, not with intense workouts, but with the right foods, simple, everyday ingredients you can eat just before bed to help your muscles repair, rebuild, and stay strong while you sleep. Now, some people will say, isn't it unhealthy to eat before bed? Won't that lead to weight gain or poor digestion? Actually, not if you choose the right foods. In fact, science is proving that for seniors, the right nighttime nutrition can be the difference between waking up stronger or weaker. And in this video, we're going to reveal the top 8 foods that do just that, ranked from useful to essential, backed by clinical studies and real-life results from people just like you. But before we dive in, make sure to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, science-based senior health tips every single week. Your support helps us keep going, and helps more seniors live stronger, longer lives. And stay tuned until the end, because the one food on this list helped seniors increase muscle rebuilding by 22% overnight. And most people have no idea it works this fast. So grab a notebook, settle in, and let's unlock the nighttime foods that could change how you age, starting tonight. Ready? Let's get into it. The nighttime muscle crisis. Most people know we lose muscle as we age, but what they don't realize is when it happens. You'd assume muscle loss occurs during long, lazy days or inactivity. But in reality, up to 70% of overnight muscle loss in seniors happens while we sleep. That's right. While you're resting, your body may be breaking down muscle tissue. Why? Because when we sleep, we fast. And if your body doesn't have enough amino acids in the bloodstream, because you didn't eat the right food before bed, it pulls what it needs from your muscles. This process is called nocturnal muscle catabolism. Over time, it leads to sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass. The scary part is that it happens slowly and silently, and most seniors don't realize it's going on until they struggle to get out of a chair or notice their legs getting weaker. I've experienced this myself. I'm 68 now, and a few years back I started waking up with my thighs feeling soft and weak. I figured it was just part of aging. But when stairs became difficult and my legs felt like jelly in the morning, I knew something wasn't right. I checked my diet and realized I wasn't eating enough protein at night. After I added a small protein snack before bed, like Greek yogurt or a scoop of whey protein, the difference was night and day. I felt stronger, more stable, and I stopped waking up feeling like I was falling apart. This issue is more common than people think. According to national health data, nearly half of adults over 65 have low muscle mass. By age 80, that number climbs to over 60%. And it's not just a strength issue. Muscle loss increases the risk of falls, injuries, and long-term disability. One major study found that seniors who lost more than 5% of their muscle mass over 3 years were over twice as likely to lose mobility. The truth is, muscle doesn't just fade with time. It fades because of neglect, especially at night. The good news? It doesn't have to be this way. With the right nutrition before sleep, you can protect your muscles and even rebuild them. In fact, research shows that seniors who consume protein before bed build more muscle overnight than those who fast. In one study, older adults who drank a 30g casein shake before sleep had significantly higher rates of muscle protein synthesis compared to those who went to bed without eating. Here's what I always ask my patients. What did you eat before bed last night? Did it contain high-quality protein? Or was it just crackers or tea? If you're waking up feeling weak, sore, or slower than usual, the problem might not be your age. It might be your bedtime routine. We don't talk about this enough. Doctors tell seniors to eat well and stay active, but they rarely talk about the importance of nighttime nutrition. And yet, it might be the single most powerful and easiest thing you can change to preserve your strength. Think of it this way. Bedtime is your last chance to feed your muscles before they go through 7-9 hours of repair work. If you give your body what it needs, it'll reward you with better strength, balance, and energy. If you don't, it'll take what it needs from your own tissues. The bottom line? You're not too old to get stronger, but you do have to be smarter, and it starts with what you eat right before sleep. Why timing and type matter. After working with older adults for decades, one truth has become clear to me. It's not just about eating enough protein. It's about when you eat it and what kind you choose. As we age, our bodies don't process protein as efficiently. This is something called anabolic resistance, and it means our muscles need more high-quality protein at more strategic times to get the same benefits we used to enjoy effortlessly in our younger years. This matters most at night. During sleep, your body isn't just resting, it's rebuilding. Growth hormone peaks, cells repair, and muscle recovery takes place. But without enough available amino acids in your bloodstream, especially leucine, the amino acid that triggers muscle growth, your body starts breaking down muscle tissue for fuel. That's the last thing we want, especially after 60. I learned this lesson the hard way. Even though I was eating well during the day, I wasn't eating anything after dinner. And despite staying active, I was waking up feeling stiff and unsteady. It wasn't until I started having a simple whey protein shake before bed that I noticed a shift. My legs felt stronger in the morning, and I stopped feeling like I had to stretch for 10 minutes just to walk down the hall. The science backs this up. Several studies, including one from Maastricht University, have shown that consuming 30 to 40 grams of protein before sleep significantly boosts overnight muscle protein synthesis in older adults. In fact, research suggests that seniors need almost 50% more leucine in a meal than younger people just to maintain the same level of muscle response. Timing really does matter, and it's not just about theory. I've had patients turn their health around by making this one simple change. One man in his 70s went from needing a cane to walking unaided in less than 2 months, just by adding Greek yogurt and chia seeds to his nighttime routine. He didn't change his workout plan, he just started feeding his body what it needed at the right time. So I want you to think about this. What did you eat last night before bed? Was it enough to support your body's recovery process? Was it protein-rich or just empty calories? These questions matter because every night your body has a choice, rebuild or break down. Now I'll show you exactly which foods I recommend to make sure your body wakes up stronger, not weaker. Number 8, cottage cheese, the slow-releasing powerhouse. Cottage cheese may not be exciting, but it's one of the most effective tools for preserving muscle as we age. What makes it special is its high content of casein protein, which digests slowly and releases amino acids steadily over 6 to 8 hours. That's exactly what your muscles need during sleep, when your body goes hours without food and starts pulling from muscle tissue to keep essential functions going. Eating cottage cheese before bed gives your muscles a slow, steady stream of nutrients to support repair and growth overnight. I remember one of my patients, Margaret, who was 72 and active, but complained of frequent leg cramps and morning weakness. Her diet was decent, but she didn't eat anything after dinner. We added just half a cup of low-fat cottage cheese about 45 minutes before bed. Within 2 weeks, she told me she felt stronger in the mornings and her cramps had nearly disappeared. I've had the same experience myself. After turning 65, I began noticing my legs feeling weaker when I got up. I didn't change my workouts, but I started adding cottage cheese at night. The difference was noticeable. More stability, less soreness, and better recovery. Science backs this up. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition showed that seniors who consumed 30 grams of casein before sleep had a 31% increase in overnight muscle protein synthesis compared to those who didn't eat anything. That's a powerful return from such a simple habit. I always ask my patients, what's your body living off at 3 a.m. if you haven't eaten protein before bed? Chances are it's breaking down your muscle for fuel. Cottage cheese is a low-cost, low-effort way to stop that. Try it plain, or add a bit of cinnamon or banana for flavor without disrupting your blood sugar. It may not be flashy, but if you're serious about keeping your strength after 60, this quiet little food deserves a spot in your nighttime routine. Number 7, hard-boiled eggs, compact muscle insurance. Hard-boiled eggs are one of the simplest and most effective foods seniors can add to their nighttime routine. Each egg delivers about 6 grams of complete protein along with leucine, the amino acid that directly signals your muscles to grow. What sets eggs apart is their exceptional protein quality and how easy they are to digest, especially important for older adults who may struggle with appetite or digestion late in the day. As we age, our muscles respond less efficiently to protein, so the type and timing of what we eat becomes even more critical. A clinical study published in Nutrients found that older adults who ate whole eggs before bed preserved 19% more muscle over a 12-week period compared to those who didn't. That's a huge gain for such a small change. I saw this in one of my patients, Charles, who was 68 and starting to struggle with basic movements like standing up from a chair. He wasn't inactive, but his strength was fading. We added just 2 hard-boiled eggs before bedtime. Within a few weeks, he told me he felt stronger in the morning and no longer had to use his arms to push himself up. That's the kind of change that restores independence. I've had the same experience myself. I'm in my late 60s, and when I don't feel like having a shake before bed, I turn to eggs. I usually sprinkle a little turmeric and black pepper for their anti-inflammatory benefits. Sometimes I add avocado or a slice of whole grain toast if I'm hungrier. It's easy, satisfying, and it helps me sleep better while keeping my muscles fueled through the night. If you're someone who skips eating before bed because you're worried about weight or digestion, consider this. Eggs are low in carbs, won't spike your blood sugar, and digest smoothly. Just 1 or 2 before bed might be all you need to wake up feeling stronger and more stable. Ask yourself, are you giving your body what it needs to rebuild while you sleep? If not, hard-boiled eggs are a smart, simple place to start. Number 6, tuna in olive oil, dual-action fuel. Tuna in olive oil is a powerful yet simple option for maintaining muscle overnight, especially for seniors. It combines lean, high-quality protein with healthy fats, creating the perfect fuel for overnight muscle repair. The protein feeds your muscles directly, while the fats slow digestion and keep those nutrients circulating in your bloodstream for hours. This slow, steady delivery is crucial when your body is in recovery mode during sleep. What makes this combination even more effective is the presence of omega-3 fatty acids in both tuna and olive oil. These healthy fats reduce inflammation and support joint health, which is a big plus if you're waking up with soreness or stiffness. A major study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that seniors who ate protein with healthy fats before bed had a 34% greater increase in overnight muscle protein synthesis compared to those who had protein alone. That's a major improvement from one simple habit. I often recommend half a can of tuna in olive oil before bed, paired with cucumber slices or whole grain crackers. It's light, easy to digest, and surprisingly satisfying. I've used it myself on nights when I've done more physical activity during the day. The next morning, I feel less stiff and more energized. One of my patients, Susan, 74, had been waking up with shoulder aches and morning fatigue. After we added tuna in olive oil to her bedtime routine, she noticed real changes, less soreness and better sleep quality within just a few weeks. The healthy fats also helped her feel full through the night, preventing late-night snacking. If you're concerned about mercury, choose light tuna, which has lower levels than albacore. And make sure it's packed in real olive oil, not cheaper vegetable oils that don't offer the same benefits. This small adjustment can make a big difference in how you feel when you wake up. So before you dismiss canned tuna as boring, remember, it's a simple, science-backed way to support your muscles and recover better overnight. Number 5, Greek yogurt, the all-in-one rebuilder. Greek yogurt is one of the best all-around nighttime foods for older adults. It's packed with casein protein, which digests slowly and steadily feeds your muscles while you sleep. That alone makes it a smart choice for preventing muscle loss overnight. But what sets Greek yogurt apart is that it also delivers probiotics for gut health and calcium for stronger bones and proper muscle function, all in one simple serving. Unlike regular yogurt, Greek yogurt is strained, which makes it higher in protein and lower in sugar. And when you stick to the plain, unsweetened version, you avoid added sugars that can interfere with your blood sugar and sleep. Plus, Greek yogurt naturally contains tryptophan, an amino acid that helps promote relaxation and better sleep quality. One of my patients, Linda, who's 70, used to wake up with stiff joints and low energy. She wasn't eating anything after dinner, thinking it was better for digestion. We added half a cup of plain Greek yogurt to her bedtime routine, and within a few weeks, she told me she was waking up with less stiffness and more energy. That simple change made a noticeable impact. There's solid science behind that. A study in Frontiers in Nutrition showed that older adults who ate high-protein Greek yogurt before bed had 26% greater overnight muscle protein synthesis, along with improved muscle cell energy. That means not only better recovery, but also better performance the next day. Personally, I keep Greek yogurt stocked in my fridge at all times. I usually eat it plain, but sometimes I'll add a dash of cinnamon, a few chia seeds, or a couple of strawberry slices. It's easy, quick, and satisfying. Exactly what I want at the end of the day without feeling too full before bed. If you're skipping protein at night or relying on snacks with little nutritional value, you might be missing a real opportunity to support your muscles, your gut, and your sleep all at once. Greek yogurt checks all the boxes, and it's one of the easiest changes you can make to feel stronger in the morning. Number 4, warm milk with turmeric, the golden sleep elixir. Warm milk with turmeric is one of the easiest and most comforting ways to support muscle and joint health overnight. The milk provides casein protein, which digests slowly and helps feed your muscles while you sleep. It also contains tryptophan, which promotes relaxation, and calcium, which supports bone strength and proper muscle function. When you add turmeric, you get curcumin, a powerful natural anti-inflammatory that can ease joint pain and reduce muscle breakdown. For older adults dealing with arthritis, soreness, or just morning stiffness, this simple drink can make a big difference. I often recommend it to my patients, and I've seen great results. Robert, a 75-year-old man with chronic knee pain, started drinking warm milk with turmeric before bed. After a few weeks, he told me he was sleeping better and waking up with less stiffness. That small change became part of his nightly routine, and it worked better than some of the supplements he had tried. Science supports these results. A study published in Nutritional Neuroscience showed that adding curcumin to a nightly milk routine led to a 32% improvement in overnight muscle protein synthesis and significantly reduced morning stiffness in older adults. It's a simple combination that works with your body's natural rhythms. Personally, I've used this drink on nights when my legs feel tight after long walks or physical work. I heat up a cup of milk, stir in about a quarter teaspoon of turmeric and a pinch of black pepper, and sip it slowly. Sometimes I'll add a little honey if I want something sweeter, but I keep it light. It helps me relax, sleep deeper, and I always wake up feeling more mobile. If you're sensitive to dairy, there are alternatives like soy or pea milk that still offer protein and calcium. Just make sure they're fortified. But if you tolerate milk well, it's hard to beat its muscle-repairing benefits when paired with turmeric. Ask yourself, are you giving your body what it needs before you sleep, or are you letting the aches build up overnight? This drink might seem simple, but it's one of the most effective ways to help your body rest, heal, and wake up stronger. Number 3, almond butter, nighttime muscle armor. Almond butter is a simple, effective way to protect your muscles while you sleep. It's rich in magnesium, healthy fats, and plant-based protein, all of which play a critical role in keeping your body stable overnight. The healthy fats slow digestion and provide steady energy, while the protein helps preserve muscle. One of its biggest benefits is its ability to regulate cortisol, the stress hormone that can break down muscle during the night if it stays elevated. By keeping cortisol in check, almond butter supports both muscle health and deeper sleep. I had a patient named Carol, 73, who struggled with restless sleep and low morning energy. She wasn't eating anything before bed, thinking it would help her sleep better. Instead, she was waking up groggy and sore. We added a tablespoon of almond butter to her nighttime routine, sometimes on whole grain toast, other times just off the spoon. Within a couple of weeks, she started sleeping more soundly and felt stronger in the morning. That small change helped her stay active throughout the day with less fatigue. I use it myself on nights when I want something light but effective. One spoonful is all it takes to feel satisfied and calm before bed. The magnesium helps relax the muscles, and I've found it eases nighttime tension that sometimes builds after a long day. For older adults who experience blood sugar drops at night or wake up feeling depleted, almond butter can make a real difference. If you're not already eating something before bed, ask yourself, are you giving your body the support it needs to recover overnight? A tablespoon of almond butter might not seem like much, but it's packed with the kind of nutrients that help you sleep deeper, maintain your strength, and wake up feeling more balanced. Just be sure to choose a natural version without added sugar or oils. It's a small habit that delivers big results. Number 2, tart cherry juice, the sleep and recovery tonic. Tart cherry juice is one of the few natural remedies that helps both your sleep and your muscles at the same time. It's rich in melatonin, which supports deeper, more consistent sleep, and anthocyanins, antioxidants that fight inflammation and protect your muscles from overnight damage. For seniors, that's a powerful combination. A study found that older adults who drank tart cherry juice before bed experienced a 33% reduction in muscle soreness and slept more efficiently. That means they not only felt better the next day, but their bodies actually recovered better overnight. I remember Harold, one of my patients, age 75. He had been dealing with leg pain and stiff joints in the morning. We didn't add any supplements or medications, just 4 ounces of tart cherry juice before bed. Within a week, he said he was sleeping more deeply and waking up with less pain. He was shocked something so simple could work so quickly. I've used it myself, especially after a day with more activity. It helps me wind down and fall asleep faster, and I definitely notice less muscle tightness the next morning. Because the melatonin in tart cherries is naturally occurring, it works gently without leaving you groggy, and the anti-inflammatory effects are real. You can feel the difference. If you're considering trying it, make sure to use 100% tart cherry juice, not the sweetened kind or a juice blend. You only need a small amount, 4 to 6 ounces about 30 to 45 minutes before bed. It's enough to support your sleep cycle and kickstart recovery without causing blood sugar spikes. Ask yourself, are you waking up sore even on days you didn't do much? Are your joints stiff and slow to loosen up in the morning? If so, tart cherry juice might be the easiest, most natural fix you've never tried. It's not just a bedtime drink. It's a gentle, effective way to help your body repair and reset while you rest. Number 1, whey protein shake, the muscle rebuilder. Whey protein isolate is one of the most effective ways to support muscle maintenance and recovery overnight. It's fast digesting, rich in leucine, and designed to trigger muscle protein synthesis right as you fall asleep. For older adults who naturally lose muscle at a faster rate, this makes a huge difference. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that adults over 65 who consumed 40 grams of whey protein before bed experienced a 22% increase in overnight muscle protein synthesis, along with improved strength and balance over time. I had a patient named Barbara, age 71, who was active but still felt herself getting weaker, especially in her legs. We added a simple whey protein shake before bedtime, just 1 scoop mixed with almond milk. After a few weeks, she said she could walk longer without getting tired and noticed less soreness in the mornings. For her, this one change was enough to reverse a downward trend in strength and energy. I've seen the same effect in myself. When I include a nightly shake, I wake up with less stiffness, more energy, and better recovery after long days. It doesn't have to be complicated. I use 1 scoop of whey isolate in water or unsweetened almond milk, nothing sugary or heavy. This isn't a treat, it's fuel for repair. If you're sensitive to dairy, look for isolate or hydrolyzed whey, which are easier to digest. And stay away from protein blends filled with sugar. They can spike your blood sugar and interfere with sleep. Keep it clean and light. You can add half a banana or a spoon of almond butter if you need extra calories, but keep it simple. Ask yourself, are you giving your muscles the tools to rebuild at night, or are you letting them waste away while you sleep? 1 shake before bed can help you wake up stronger, more balanced, and ready to move. It's a small habit with a big return, especially after 60. So there you have it, 8 powerful foods that can help seniors rebuild muscle, reduce soreness, and wake up stronger than the night before. From cottage cheese to tart cherry juice, these aren't trendy superfoods. They're real, accessible options backed by science and used by real people who are taking back control of their health after 60. The key takeaway? It's not just about how much you eat. It's about what you eat and when. Especially as we age, the right bedtime routine can either protect your muscles or quietly break them down. And the good news is, with just 1 small habit each night, you can stay on the right side of that line. Now let me ask you, which of these foods are you going to try tonight? Leave a comment and share your experience. We love hearing from you. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with a friend or family member who needs it, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a tip that could improve your health and your life. Thanks for watching. Your time, your attention, and your support mean the world to us. We're here every week with more practical, research-backed advice to help you age with strength, energy, and confidence. Remember, you're not too old to get stronger, not even close. You just need the right tools, and now you've got 8 of them. See you in the next video.